Welcome to Dark Character Profiler. Take a deep dive into the background and personalities of villains from books, video games, manga, and comics. Psychological analysis of some of the most deviant and heinous characters of all time. Now, here's Fulcrum.
Welcome back, my dark disciples, to another episode of Dark Character Profiler. The shadows have gathered, the spotlight is dim, and we're ready to delve into the depths of another fascinating and perhaps unsettling character. Pull up a chair, settle in, and let's begin. While I typically focus on characters from books, video games, or manga, and often those with villainous or antagonistic roles, Jan Levinson from The Office presented such a compelling case study that warranted an exception. Although she doesn't originate from those mediums and isn't a traditional villain, Jan's complexity and intriguing character arc offered rich material for analysis. Her journey, marked by ambition, vulnerability, and a descent into increasingly erratic behavior, provides a fascinating exploration of the pressures of corporate life, relationships, and the search for identity. The nuances of her personality, the subtle shifts in her demeanor, and the underlying motivations behind her actions create a character ripe for discussion and interpretation, even outside my usual parameters. Essentially, Jan's compelling nature and the potential for insightful discussion outweighed my usual focus, demonstrating that even non-villainous characters from television can offer valuable insights into human behavior. The air crackled. A sudden stillness descended, heavier than the usual Scranton humidity. My fingers, sticky with toner, froze mid-photocopy. A ripple of awareness spread through the bullpen. A silent signal that something, or someone, important had arrived. Jan Levinson. My stomach clenched. I hadn't even met her, but her name echoed in the hallowed halls of Dunder Mifflin, a legend whispered with a mix of awe and trepidation. I straightened my cardigan, suddenly hyper-aware of its slightly off-kilter buttons. My reflection in the darkened copier glass showed a face flushed with a mixture of nerves and a strange, almost morbid curiosity. She moved through the office like a force of nature, a perfectly tailored storm. Her presence shifted the atmosphere, making the fluorescent lights seem harsher and the beige walls even more drab. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I felt small, insignificant, like a misplaced memo in her meticulously organized world. Her gaze swept over the desks, a silent assessment. It landed on mine, a cluttered landscape of files and half-eaten granola bars. Panic flared. I instinctively tried to neaten the mess, a futile gesture under her scrutinizing eyes. There was a moment, a breath held captive, where our eyes met. Hers were cool, analytical, and yet I thought I saw a flicker of something else there. A hint of understanding? Or was it just my imagination, fueled by the pressure of the moment? Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the moment was over. She moved on, her presence leaving a lingering tension in its wake. I exhaled, a shaky breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My hands trembled slightly as I returned to work, the copier's hum suddenly deafening. The encounter had been brief, almost imperceptible, but it had left an indelible mark. With a certainty that settled deep in my bones, I knew that things at Dunder Mifflin were about to change. To truly grasp Jan's complexities, we need to delve into her background, which plays a crucial role in shaping who she is. Jan started out as a secretary at Dunder Mifflin. She eventually began to climb the corporate ladder and became vice president of Northeast Sales. We don't know much about her relationship with her family other than it's strained. At some point, Jan gets a divorce from her husband and changes her name from Levinson Gould to just Levinson, which Michael takes note of. Eventually, they start a tumultuous affair, which will lead into an actual relationship. Jan's behavior during this time becomes increasingly more unstable as their relationship progresses. Eventually, she's fired from Dunder Mifflin for various reasons, including some of her behavioral changes. She moves in with Michael, and then she starts a candle making business, which struggles due to her questionable business practices. She also attempts to sue Dunder Mifflin for wrongful termination, which puts Michael in a difficult position by asking him to testify on her behalf while also having to testify on the company's behalf. Their relationship ultimately becomes so tumultuous that it ends. Later on, we see Jan again, and it becomes known that she became pregnant through artificial insemination, and she had a daughter who she named Astrid. Jan would eventually continue her professional life, navigate through single motherhood, and eventually moved on from her relationship with Michael. Now, let's move beyond her background and really dig into the layers of Jan's personality. What drives Jan Levinson? Is she a victim of circumstance or the master of her own unraveling? Let's break down the complexities of her personality, examining the shifts, the contradictions, and the moments that reveal the true Jan beneath the surface. Jan initially begins her journey at Dunder Mifflin as someone who is composed, serious, and intimidating. She's very professional and ambitious. She's success-driven, and she's sometimes reserved and private when it comes to her personal life. Over time, though, Jan begins to display more vulnerability and insecurity, especially as her relationship with Michael progresses. During this time, she becomes increasingly erratic and impulsive. She makes very questionable decisions. She starts exhibiting signs of insecurity, jealousy, and even aggression. Her priorities shift, and she starts to search for fulfillment. This can be seen by her decision to get breast implants and her obsession with candles during stressful times in her life, such as getting fired and losing her independence. She also becomes very needy and dependent on Michael. Her relationship with him is also extremely dysfunctional. She craves his attention and validation, even though she's also bitter and resentful of him and Dunder Mifflin. She also struggles with stability, especially after being fired and not having a purpose for herself anymore. Now that we've explored the intricacies of her personality, I'm eager to share the poll results with you all. My dark disciples, gather round. From the shadows, I bring forth the names of those who have earned our recognition. I wanted to give a big shout out to my amazing dad for helping me craft the perfect intro and outro for my podcast. Your creativity and support mean the world to me. And for everyone tuning in, don't forget to check out his incredible show, The Never Ending Radio Show, bringing you timeless music and timeless principles. His show is linked in the description below. Thanks, Dad, for always inspiring and helping me elevate my game. I want to give a special shout out to the servers at Chico's Tex-Mex in Palatka, Florida. I heard you're big fans, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, let me know in the comments. And if any of you other listeners find yourselves in Palatka, be sure to stop by Chico's for some amazing Tex-Mex. Also, huge thanks to Peng for suggesting Handsome Jack from the Borderlands series. What a fantastic and iconic character. Really appreciate the suggestion and stay tuned because Handsome Jack is coming your way in the near future. Finally, thank you to all of my dark disciples for listening. Stay tuned at the end of this episode to get a glimpse of the audiobook, A Kingdom of Ash and Steam, The Ogress's Son, an action-adventure, sci-fi, and steampunk novel written by Paige Zaplendam and narrated by Rich Fraser. A link to the audiobook will also be provided in the episode description. This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. While we use the DSM-5 as a framework to provide psychological analyses of fictional characters, the discussions are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide professional mental health advice. The interpretations shared are based on hypothetical scenarios and creative exploration and should not be applied to actual individuals or situations. For mental health concerns or diagnoses, please consult a licensed professional. Listener discretion is advised. The votes have been tallied, and the shadows have revealed your preferences, my dark disciples. Narcissistic personality disorder has emerged as the clear victor, casting the longest shadows. Following closely, histrionic personality disorder sought the spotlight, securing second place. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder held its ground in the second-to-last position, while other faded into the background. Your choices have been made, and we shall explore them. Now, we're going to check out the evidence that is going to back up our final thoughts on Jan's analysis. Jan tends to act as if she knows best, even when her decisions are questionable. She craves attention and validation and thrives on being the center of attention. She focuses a lot on her appearance. She gets breast implants, which are used as a means to attract attention. She also wants to be seen as successful and sophisticated. She's often dismissive and insensitive towards other people's feelings, particularly when it comes to Michael. She often acts as though she deserves special treatment. She expects success even when her efforts are lacking. She also attempts to sue Dunder Mifflin for wrongful termination, and her demeanor suggests she feels superior to others. She's also preoccupied with achieving success and recognition. Her candle-making business suggests a disconnect from reality and a focus on an idealized vision. She presents herself as more sophisticated and worldly than her colleagues. She's somewhat exploitative in her relationships. Her dependence on Michael is seen as taking advantage of him. She displays dramatic emotions when feeling threatened or insecure, which often occurs during her arguments with Michael. She's also very suggestible and readily adopts new trends and fads. She often uses her charm and charisma to get what she wants. Her emotions shift quickly and dramatically. She goes from being calm and composed to highly emotional in short periods of time. Her emotional displays sometimes lack depth as well. Her communication style can be vague and lacking concrete detail. She uses broad generalizations and emotional language. She often struggles with independent decision making, and her reliance on Michael suggests difficulty in trusting her own judgment. She also relies on others to care for her needs. Her dependence on Michael suggests a desire for someone else to take charge. She avoids expressing disagreement or disapproval. She often goes along with Michael's plans, suggesting a fear of conflict or rejection. She has intense attachment to Michael, desperately holding on to their relationship. She quickly seeks new relationships when her relationship with Michael ends. And finally, she struggles with being alone. She wants to avoid feelings of helplessness and inadequacy. With the evidence presented, it's time to reveal the final analysis of Jan Levinson. Based on our exploration of all the evidence, we now present the final analysis of Jan Levinson. First, we have narcissistic personality disorder, which is a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. Second, we have histrionic personality disorder, a pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. Next, we have dependent personality disorder, which is a pervasive and excessive need to be taken care of that leads to submissive and clinging behavior and fears of separation, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. And finally, we have no diagnosis. It's also entirely possible that Jan's behavior is simply a combination of personality quirks, stress, and poor coping mechanisms without meeting the criteria for a specific diagnosis. Her character is exaggerated for comedic purposes, and her behavior might not reflect a true mental health condition. With that, I hope you enjoyed this analysis of Jan Levinson. The shadows recede and our exploration concludes. Thank you, my dark disciples, for lending your ears and minds to this character. I trust you'll be back when the darkness calls again. Until then, beware the shadows, and I'll see you next time.
Humanity was not meant to live this way. Society is left to the mercy of murderers and cutthroats. Hear Paige Zaplin Dam's epic tale brought to life in an audiobook. For years, Slade had felt secure in the forest. I am from simple, humble beginnings. I was raised in the Ironwood by an Ogress, an Anaral. He saw immediately that she was beyond a healer's aid. Even a skilled witch could not help her recover from losing so much blood. Mother? Slade thought he wanted revenge. Instead, he got redemption. A kingdom of ash and steam. The Ogress's Son. A dystopian neo-Dark Age fantasy. Narrated by Rich Fraser. Now available on iTunes and Audible. I promise you I will find whoever did this and avenge you, Mother.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I truly appreciate your support. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave a comment or review. It helps more listeners discover the podcast. And don't forget to check out the poll linked below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the next episode. All references for this episode are listed in the description, so feel free to explore further. You can also follow us on Instagram or X. You can also join our Discord channel to stay connected and join the conversation. All are linked in the episode description below. Until next time, take care and keep exploring.
Thank you for listening to Dark Character Profiler with Fulcrum. Listen every other Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts.